been fantastic. I think that, while we're in classes with the guys most of the time during the week, one of the things we're able to do here is we're actually able to interact with them. And well, once you get to meet somebody in person, talk with them in person, the communication bandwidth increases. So this has been great. The people that I've met that are also trading, that I'm also in the Rebel Pit with, and we are exchanging text messages back and forth, the camaraderie is just excellent. So I recommend anytime they have an in-person event, you got to come and attend.
Join us this December in Miami, Florida for Market Rebellion Live.
Bang.
That's the starter.
Let's get started, Pete.
Let's do it.
Folks, you're watching The Rebels Edge. Pete Najarian, me, John Najarian, and Jared, our producer. Glad to have you on board. Remember, it streams live on Twitter, on Market Rebellion, and on YouTube. You can always just go to YouTube, search for Market Rebellion. We've got our own channel up there. We've got, I think, 34,000 plus subscribers, Pete. And like we said yesterday, gaining about 1,000 every week as far as new subscribers. And that's before we announce a new streaming deal, Pete. So a lot of good folks. We appreciate all of you. Thanks for joining. Also, that ad that preceded the beginning of the show is for the Miami event, December 8th through 10th. If you'd like to join us live in Miami, just go to marketrebellion.com/Miami. One of our folks would be glad to speak with you as well. You'll see links that we'll send out to you if you'd like to speak to somebody, or you can just sign up. Only 25 of you can do that. So we hope that many of you who would like to go do it now before it's sold out, before Thanksgiving. All right, Pete.
Yeah.
1 minute macro. Bang. Let's put it on the clock. 1 minute. All right. So why are we down today? Well, we were up pretty decent back and forth yesterday, of course, but up pretty decent into the bell when they thought it was going to be a tidal wave. It's more like an 8-footer, Pete, but nonetheless, not decided yet. Georgia and Arizona still out there. So I'm going to say the macro, Pete, is the elections. Divided government's going to be good, but we would like to see both houses of Congress, the House and Senate, go red. That's what I'm going to interpret this sell-off to be.
Yeah, we were looking for the red wave and we got a red, I don't even know what. It's like, it's terrible because it was
a
not
body surfing wave.
This is not surfable. No, it's not even a body surfing wave. But, John, if we look also and stare right at that dollar, you always look at that as a great contraindicator of the direction. So you look at that and it's 113 a week ago. And then we started to plummet. The market started to rise, including yesterday, a little bit of a change started yesterday. That was part of that volatility. But today we've seen the dollar starting to rise off of the 109 area up to a little bit over the mid 110, something like that. You see a little bit of pressure on the market, but I think you're right, John. I think the primary catalyst is absolutely the expectations and still waiting on some of those, to be counted up right and see what happens.
Yep. Well, that's it for macro, folks.
Again,
you want macro. There's plenty of places that'll drone on for an hour about what Pete and I covered in a minute. All right, let's get started, Pete, with Meta, because we both said all Zuck had to do was cut back on CapEx and this thing would be up 10% in a week. Well, I guess we underestimated it, Pete, because it was almost up 10% today when he announced cutting 13% of the workforce and keeping a hiring freeze through the first quarter of next year. What's your take? Would you give it a shot again to trade to the upside further?
Well, I can tell you this, John. We did see some call buying right out of the gate today in Facebook, and that was sort of something interesting. That's a little freebie unusual right there. But I think that the interesting part is, John, to your point, he did what people said that he needed to do for quite some time. He needs to pull back a little bit from what they're doing and sort of reallocate and redecide on what they need to really be doing. He said that I got this wrong. He couldn't be more right on that statement. He did get it wrong. He's been focused on Meta. He's not looking at Facebook. He's not looking at all the products that actually are funding everything that he's spending at Meta. And that's been the big problem. They changed the name. Big deal. It still isn't about Meta. When's Meta going to start making a money, John? It almost is like an Uber call, so to speak. But
yeah,
the regular business itself is there. They're cranking. They continue to crank. They have slowed down, but that's still what's drawing them in. It's where the money is. You look at the fundamentals of the company. It is extremely a fundamentally sound company with great cash flow, all of that to be true. So, yeah, I think it actually could, sustain a little bit more to the upside, John. But people still got to know, how much more money are you putting into Meta, something that's years in the making?
Yeah. And Pete, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I've worked with and am working with companies in the metaverse and multiverse space that one of them has like 27 million game played per day, Pete, per day. Zuckerberg has 200,000 people that have ever been in his crazy metaverse. It's a completely different thing. I think the owners, if you will, of the metaverse, and it'll keep changing, it won't just be one, but the owners of that won't be Facebook, won't be Google. They might buy some of the people who are really, really good at this, but Zuckerberg is clearly not one of those people. All right. So we're both, I bought, Pete, and I bought more on the dip, and I'm looking for upside in Meta, and I guess you are too.
Yep.
All right, let's take it over to Disney, because the House of the Mouse just crushed. Why? Well, let me see. It's a disappointment on both revenue and earnings per share. That's the 1-2 punch, Pete. They were expected to have earnings of about 51 cents. They came in at 30. Ouch. That is a big miss. And the thing that you and I harp on all the time, Pete, when we used to be on television a lot, we would say, you know what? Subscribers don't matter. It doesn't matter because they don't make any money on it. So, you can say, oh, subscriber count's up 15%. Great. Do you make money on it? No. All right. Well, I guess whoever has the next hot movie will get the next 15% subscribers. Anyway, what's your take at this level, Pete, after a 12% drop?
Well, John, they did make a big deal out of this subscriber thing. You're right. They said, oh, yeah, Disney Plus, we got 12 million more than we expected, about 9 million. Well, that's just great. You're also not making as much money on those subscribers as you were. I mean, those are the estimates as well. They were looking for $4.21. They're actually closer to $3.91, John. So that sort of speaks for itself. But when you miss on your revenue by $1 billion and you're Disney, that's not good. You miss on your earnings, as you already pointed out, where it was going to be something over 50 cents. And now all of a sudden you come in at 30 cents. That's not so good. So you can understand why a lot of people are kind of questioning, well, how about this Chapek guy? Is he doing the right thing? Is he the right guy for the job? He took forever to decide what he wanted to do with streaming. They've changed the prices a dozen times. There just seems to be so much, John, that's in flux right now for Disney that there's a good reason why it's at the lowest level. I had to go back in time, John. The lowest level for the share since 2014. I mean, that gives you a little bit of an idea of how bad the performance is for Disney. Can it turn around? Sure it can. It's going to take the right leadership, though, to turn this ship. And I'm not so sure that the guy sitting there right now is the right guy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Pete. I don't know why he more or less picked a fight with one of the most popular governors in history.
Mistake.
I mean, DeSantis won 60% plus of the vote down there, Pete.
Yep.
And this guy was picking a woke fight with a guy that doesn't play that way.
No.
So I'm right there with you. I think at 2014 price levels, you can buy some Disney, and I probably will, Pete, but I haven't pulled the trigger on shares yet. And I'm happy I haven't, obviously. Anybody who hasn't bought shares in a while is happy that they haven't bought shares yet. All right, Roblox. I know we talked about this one, Pete, and we both shook our heads when the stock was getting cracked a little bit ago. And we said, I just don't get it. Roblox, where do these guys get off with these kind of valuations? Well, the answer is they don't. And so the market has revalued them. Pete, I know you were very outspoken about Roblox. Please give us a little insight after this just horrible loss for the quarter.
Well, John, they only lost 74 million, a year ago. So, it's okay. They only lost 300 million this go around. I mean, what the hell? Why not? Makes sense to me. I mean, this is a stock that, by the way, in its IPO in 21, it was $45. It's still below that. It's at 32 today. Last I looked, it was down about 16, 17%, something like that, John. But it's just amazing. It was 141. And boy, you and I both know there's a lot of guys going, oh, I like this Roblox. That's a little hint, by the way. But it's not. It's a hunk of crap. And it's one of these names that just continues to just mystify me. You have to have earnings. At some point when you're a public company, you got to start making money. And again, we brought this up with much more mature companies than this one, but they've got to make money. They're losing money, John. It's a total bleed. It's a pain. And I can't see a reason right now why that would be a buy. I just don't. So that one, we like Disney because you know what? Maybe there's a chance to move up, a little bit more. Meta, same thing. They've got a great balance sheet and everything. Roblox, not so much.
Pete, this thing's been around since 2004. Now, not public the whole time. Right. I get it. Yep. You got to give some of these companies, their A round, B round, C round, all that kind of stuff. In other words, the funding that gets them to the public markets, or some of them go through public through SPACs. This one didn't. But my gosh, when you're around this long and you're losing that kind of money, it's kind of like that pilot that comes on, Pete, and says, well, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is we're making good time. The bad news is we're lost. So
he's the guy looking at Hawaii, John, going, hey, it's kind of liver shaped, right?
It's kind of a liver shaped island, isn't it? Any of you been there before? Yeah, Roblox, not interested still, even after this drop, Pete. And all these stocks, Kathy Woods is in this one. She's in Coinbase. She was adding to it yesterday. We'll talk about that right now because we're about to do unusual option activity. It's my turn to kick it off. I guess I always kind of kick it off, Pete. But I'm going to comment on Coinbase and that call that the team had for those puts when the stock was 60 and it traded down to 50. And then we said yesterday they reloaded at 40 puts with the stock at 49. Well, guess what? Traded down to 45 today. So sooner or later, I'm not saying Kathy's going to be right, but sooner or later, Kathy runs out of other people's money, Pete, because, that's what it is. It's just like socialism. Sooner or later, you run out of somebody else's money. This one, Kathy's a brilliant woman. She's done a fabulous job, but that's in the rearview mirror. What has she done for us lately? And how heavy do the redemptions have to be with Roblox and Coinbase? I'd say they're pretty heavy, Pete.
Yeah, I would agree with you, John. I mean, it is amazing. And it's, Kathy continues to buy, and then it seems like she's the trigger for sellers. It's almost like the inverse of others that we know as well, where when they do something, somebody reacts to that. And it looks like Kathy Wood, when she buys, the sellers come out, palms are out. And that's a tough spot, but you know what? They've made money doing it, John. And because they keep making money doing it, I think they're going to continue on doing that. So I would definitely keep that in mind when you're looking at some of those kinds of names that we know that they're positioning themselves into.
All right, Pete, here's one that we get a lot, which is CHPT.
Yep.
We have unusual activity in this one. Is it bullish? No, it's not bullish. I mean, this one is, continuing to get bearish activity, Pete. I'd love to see bullish activity in this name. We have had it a couple times and it's worked out, but right now CHPT November 11 puts with the stock at 1140. So in other words, 40 cents under where the stock is trading right now is where a big block of short is hovering. And that's 1 million shares short at that level, Pete. So if we break towards 11 or through 11, there's going to be a lot of pressure on that stock. They only paid about 42, 43 cents for these puts, which is a big bet to the downside with a little bit of money. What do you think, Pete?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, John. It's one of those names that for whatever reason, there are a lot of active folks trading this thing to the upside and to the downside. We see volumes in Charge Point that are just absolutely outrageous at times. We've seen 50,000 lots go up and more. So that certainly, it does make that one a pretty interesting one, John. I got to jump into mine though real quick, only because
Okay.
I'm so excited about what we're looking at here, because we've had Lilly. Now we've got Merck. Now, we've had buyers in both over time that have been right. That, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I can even just tell you on Monday in Merck, we had a buyer of 7,800 of Fridays expiring 102 calls. Those are going for about 30 cents up to about 40 cents, John. Stock was under 100. They're now $2. That doesn't seem so bad to me. That's a pretty nice return. Now, we had Lilly paper yesterday. We also have Merck paper on Monday, but now we got it again today, John. And they continue to hold on to those others, but they could be hedging with stock now or whatever. But we've got a buyer of 5,700. Now the stock is trading just under 103. 5,700 of Friday, just a couple days away. The 108 calls in Merck. So we've had Lilly paper. Now we get this Merck paper twice in the same week. The first one already an absolute home run. This one, I think, is going to be very interesting as well. But you don't always have to go, and this is something you talk about a lot, and I'll just educate everybody. Just because they're buying the 108s doesn't mean that's the only option out there that you could buy. There are others out there as well. And I think it's, in my case, I actually shifted down a little bit and managed to get something at the 105 strike. So there's a lot of different ways that you can navigate through this as well. Don't always have to do exactly what the trading was, but I wanted to be somewhere in the ballpark of what they were looking at and looking to the upside with this bullish activity. So what we were seeing, they were paying about 10 cents for those options on the 108s. I think the 105s, John, were about 35 cents. So risk reward, that made more sense to me.
I agree. Well, what makes sense to you, Pete, as far as, some of these Heisman hopefuls? I mean, I know you liked the Tennessee quarterback, and I think he's a good kid, but man, when he really could have shown something, he didn't. But, there was a heavy rain there, but excuses are like, what, Pete? Everybody has one.
Noses?
So, noses. That's what I was going to say.
That's where you were going, right?
But
John,
who's your pick for the Heisman?
Well, so here's the way I look at it, John. So the Heisman, when they go into this whole thing, it's always about the winning teams and the historic teams and all of that, right? And all you've got to do is go back and say, all right, how many Heismans at Ohio State, Alabama, throw in Michigan, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, those kind of schools, right? They get all the attention. They also get all the athletes. So oftentimes we see a lot of these Heisman Trophy winners that go off into the NFL, and suddenly you realize this quarterback, you know what? He might not be all that good. Matter of fact, I'll challenge you with something. Name me a USC quarterback, and there have been several who are first-round picks, Heisman trophies, you name it, who actually have produced in the NFL. And the answer is, let me get a little time to think that one over, because you're going to have to wait a long time to find any of them. But how about this, John? North Carolina is a basketball school. We all know that. In the last 20 years, they've had a football team that's had one time they had double-digit wins in a season in the last 20 years. Now, this is the school of Michael Jordan, and we all know what a great basketball school it is. You've got all these other guys from all the big colleges out there, right? C.J. Stroud at Ohio State. You got Hooker down at Tennessee. You got Blake Corum at Michigan, the running back. You've got Jalen Daniels. You've got Caleb Williams. We've got all these guys, right? I'm going to go with this kid from North Carolina, and here's why. They are now 8-1. They are at the top of the ACC Coastal. And this kid, Drake May, has the most touchdowns of any quarterback in football with 31. He also only has 3 interceptions, so he doesn't throw the ball all around, John. He's from Huntersville, North Carolina. He's a freshman, and he's 6'4", 220 pounds. He leads the team in rushing. He's got 4 touchdowns there, 5.5 a carry. He's thrown for 2,900 yards. He's run for 500 yards. He leads the team in that, John. So when it's all said and done, what else could this kid do as long as he continues on the path that he is? Their one loss was to Notre Dame, okay? That's their one loss of the season. He threw 5 touchdown passes in that game. He's had 3 games where he's thrown 5 touchdown passes in. So even in the loss, it was the defense, not this kid on the offensive side. And his accuracy, he's 71% completion against everybody. It's amazing, John, how good this kid really is. And yet, nobody really talks about him. Drake May for Heisman. That's what I say.
All right. Well, Pete, the last guy that came out of North Carolina highly touted was Trubinsky.
Yes.
And didn't do so well. Now, this kid is a different kid.
Yes.
I agree with you. I don't know if Trubinsky ever threw for 5 touchdowns in a game.
No.
And unfortunately, as a Chicago Bear fan, I know what Mitch did. But Pete, I'm going to throw one out there and surprise you. Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Bo Nix
Good call.
at Oregon. I mean, I think this kid has been looking great. Oregon may be in the mix, Pete, because you and I know when Michigan and Ohio State play, if they're both undefeated, one of them's going to fall out of the top 4. I just believe that in my heart, you can't lose late in the season and still stay in the top 4. So even if it comes down to a sudden death kind of, overtime situation, Pete, whoever loses is out. And if Oregon wins out, they're going to be in. So I'm going to say Bo Nix.
Good player, transfer from Auburn. The kid's a heck of a quarterback, and he's doing a great job, John, with this first and only year at Oregon. That's a good call. All right, so the next one I've got for you, John, is this. A-Rod is not the GOAT. And here's why he's not the GOAT. So we all know who the GOAT is anyway, Tom Brady, and you can't even touch him. But if you want to try to touch him, how about this? Tom Brady's got 7 Super Bowl wins. You know how many Aaron Rodgers has got? And the guy's got 2 MVPs of the league. He's got 1 Super Bowl, okay? Yep. So why is that? Well, it might be because of the real Aaron Rodgers is starting to come out of his skin a little bit more and a little bit more, John. Here's the thing. He just signed his most recent contract, 3 years, $150 million, right? $50 million a year. Here's the problem for the GM Gutekunst, who used to be my ball boy back in college, and his dad was my defensive coordinator. I'm kind of dating myself a little bit there. But so he's got to sit there and put $50 million there. All right, well, what are you going to do? Well, we can't keep our receiver because we don't know what the heck, how much is he going to cost, right? So Devondre goes, they send him all the way out to the Vegas Raiders, John. So Adams is out there, and he loses a receiver. He has no receivers. And as opposed to Tom Brady, how about this for a stat? I looked this one up. 16 years from 2004 to 2019, he made a couple $100 million. It sounds like a lot. $15 million per year was his average over that 16 years, John. Aaron's getting $50 million. You know what the difference is? One of them wants to win Super Bowls, and one of them wants a hell of a lot of money. And I can tell you who's who in the pew, because in 2007, when they went out and got Randy Moss up there in New England, you know who took a pay cut? Tom Brady. You're not seeing Aaron Rodgers do this kind of thing. And I'm telling you, I like Aaron Rodgers. I thought he was a nice guy. I'm starting to think that he's a little bit different guy ever since he did the smoking the frog venom or whatever the hell the guy was doing. Some crazy licking the backside of a frog or whatever it is. I mean, the whole thing is nuts, right? But all that being said, I think it's pretty interesting because here he is, John, here. They beat the Bears, the Bucks, and the Patriots after losing to the Vikings, but they lost to the Giants, they lost to the Jets, they lost to the Commanders, they lost to the Bills, and oh, by the way, they might have lost to the Detroit Lions this past week. So if it could get any worse, I don't know how, except for they got to play the Cowboys this week. That's most likely a loss. And then they got the Titans. How's that defense going to like looking across over at the King? Not that much. Because I know those linebackers, they're not very big, and the King is going to take advantage of that. So all that being said, Derrick Henry and the boys, I think I see 2 more losses coming Aaron's way.
Well, Pete, you call him A-Rod instead of A-Rog. Why is that?
Well, he's a bit of a rod, but anyway.
Okay. Okay, smart guy. Folks, we appreciate you tuning in. I almost felt like giving him this early, but we welcome you to join us tomorrow, folks. Also, I want to tell those of you who could attend, or at least just want to sign up, that AJ Monte and I, that's our big technical guru, we're going to be doing swing trading with option spreads tonight, 4 p.m. Eastern time, right at the market close. If you sign up, even if you're busy, even if you're going to go out and go to the gym or just drive home, try to beat the traffic or whatever, we'll send you a copy of it for free. You don't have to pay us a cent. So that's tonight. You got to go to Market Rebellion and register. MarketRebellion.com. Free webinar tonight with one of the best folks in technical analysis, AJ Monte. I will be joining him. Be a great time. Join me and Pete tomorrow right here for the Rebel's Edge. Bang!